the Jayne McCann professional organizer and clutter coach, and it is summer here in the 802, and I gotta tell you, it is hot as a match today. I am struggling to stay cool, but I have a message that is really important and I wanted to share it with you. I have had a fabulous start to this summer. It's great. My cup is overflowing with joy. I have so many projects that I'm excited about, which means I have had to do a fair share of self-coaching because I found myself stuck at various times, stuck not knowing what to do next. And the other day I was coaching somebody else and she was in a similar position. She's got this big vision about what needs to happen, but the various pieces, like what needs to happen first, second, third, none of that is really clear to her yet. And she said, I don't know what to do. I feel paralyzed. And I was like, well, what if you act on what you know for sure? What if you forget about that big picture? And what if you just take action on what you absolutely do know? And she said, I can do that? I don't have to have a whole plan before I move forward? And I was like, no, you don't. And in that moment, I was like, oh dear, you need to go home and you need to apply this yourself. Go home, act on what you know. Because even when there is a ton of mental chaos going on up here, there is always going to be something that we can act on with certainty. Let me give you an example of what I mean. Let's say you're thinking about changing careers. Now that could be a really daunting task. And I can understand how somebody could get stuck in analysis paralysis and just not feel like they can take any kind of action. But there is always going to be something that you can do for sure in a situation like that. You could do something as simple as Googling for career coaches. You could call the Small Business Administration and see if there's a mentor available to talk to. You could do an industry research to see where the growth is and where the most opportunities are. So there are tons of things that you can do even if you didn't have a grand plan for how you were going to pivot in your career path. So the magic in taking first steps is that it allows you to take the second step, because you can never take the second step unless you take the first step, right? It's just not possible. And when we take action, we create momentum, which allows us to move forward, which allows us to get unstuck. And I know that there are some people that say, well, I really need clarity before I can act. But the thing is, clarity often shows up after we take action. In the midst of action is where the fog starts to lift and things start to make sense. So how does this apply to clutter clearing? Let's say you have a really cluttered space and just the thought of going in there feels overwhelming. I can guarantee, I do this from a place of educated guessing, I guess, because I've worked with enough people to know that there is always something that you know for sure you do not need. It's probably something that's collecting dust that you've walked by 50 or 100 times and said, I gotta get rid of that. But because there was no sense of urgency attached to it at the time, you let it sit there. So what if you just went in and what if you just started to let go of the things that you know for sure you do not need? It might not be very many items, but at least it will get you started. At least it will get you unstuck. And once you get unstuck and you create that momentum, it's much easier to complete the project. Even if you never come up with like a grand plan for how it's all going to unfold, if you were just to keep acting on what you know, you say like, what do I know for sure today? Okay, I know this. I'll go take action on that. Those baby steps would get you to the place that you want to be. So I'd love to know what you think about this idea. Do you think you need clarity in order to move ahead? Or do you think you could go in and act on what it is you know for sure? Because there is always something that we can do with certainty. It may not be some momentous task. It might be something really small, something as simple as picking up the phone and making a call, moving one item out of the space. But there is always going to be something that we can do which will help get us unstuck. So whatever you think about this idea, let me know. Use the comments below. Send me an email. I would love to know your thoughts, whether you think this is, great or just really stupid.